Hello and Allahu Akbar. Time is 11 o'clock. For the record, today is the 2nd of July. Wow. Well, I try to take time off, I guess. But here and there, questions and inquisition comes from other people asking me to do the topics. I've been approached by a few good Persians and Rana. They were insisting to me that I should listen to the words and the lectures of Mr. Dr. Hussein Elahi Qomshei. That they call him such a knowledgeable individual, it is so much into mysticism, irfan and all those. Well, I had to accept the offer and I got obliged, and I listened to some of this interesting comments of Mr. Qomshei. It is on the YouTube's. The topic that I was listening, it was the 7 cities of love, and I was intrigued on the 3rd video, just about the last parts of this 3rd video, where he brings up this subject of Pantheism and so on and so forth. I am aware of divine psychology, that's my expertise, and I see this gentleman is a very respected person. He has a very good personality. He is astonishingly very informed, and he has studied, I think, thoroughly both West and East, trying to define this Godhead and the relationship of man with God and the world of existence, and ultimately taking it from there to go to these 7 valleys of love. You know, when I listened to it, I was reminded again by this first verse of His Divine Majesty, the glory of God, Baha'u'llah, in Kitab Aqdas, the most holy book, in the very first verse. It's a very controversial one, and I was reminded of that, and I'm going to recite it for you. It reads, "The first duty prescribed by God for His servants is the recognition of Him who is the dayspring of His revelation and the fountain of His laws, who represented the Godhead in both the kingdom of His cause and the world of creation, who achieved this duty had attained unto all good, and whoso is deprived thereof had gone astray, though he be the author of every righteous deed." I always put this word of Baha'u'llah into test several times. I've done this in my life, and every time I see why is he telling the biggest truth of all time. Baha'u'llah clearly, God in the mouth of His manifestation, Baha'u'llah says that the first thing is prescribed. It's like a prescription. You have to recognize Baha'u'llah. or generally the manifestation of God whenever they come. If you don't, you've gone astray. If you do, you've achieved unto all good. It's a huge claim. This means all the non-Baha'is that willingly or unwillingly, knowingly or obliviously, have not heard of Baha'u'llah and are not understanding him and not going through this channel of Baha'u'llah, through this gate, through this manifestation, they can never teach me a word in understanding, in knowledge, in philosophy, in everything. I have learned physics and chemistry from everyone, the scientists, but when it comes to the matter of the Godhead, religion, mysticism, philosophy, the psyche of man, there is no way that if a person is not a Baha'i would get there. And this was a prime example again. I saw that. This Dr. Hossein Elahi Ghamshei, apparently, he's not a Baha'i. I haven't heard him to say anything against Baha'i faith, but he's welcomed in Iran. I heard that his speeches, a lot of people are going. But this is an example. Because he has not accepted Baha'u'llah as the Prophet of God, as the manifestation of God, what he says does not make sense. And it is so unfortunate that such a beautiful individual, this beautiful personality, he's just bereft of the very skeleton of the truth. When I listen to him and others, I imagine a kitchen with a lot of ingredients on the table. But the chef or the cook is not able even to make a sandwich out of it. The ingredients are there, but they do not know how to make the food. It's like millions of words, lexicons of the word is memorized by these literary figures, but none of them can write down a play as good as of Shakespeare. They can assemble a sentence. This is what I see. He's again another prime example. His entire talk that I listened, this part of it, he talks about pantheism. And what is God, and then, of course, how do we get to God? But if your very definition of God and existence is wrong, where are you going to? Who are you going to see? The individual that you're pointing is a wrong being, is a wrong person. All these addresses and endeavors and efforts that you have is not going to get you anywhere. Finally, you go to a wrong person. You don't even know whom you have to go to, you see. This is not a criticism of this individual or any of the individuals in Iran or other places in the world, but a rendering, a descriptions, an analytic view over what they say, at least for what I hear. Now they might come back and say that they didn't mean it. Well, that's different. But right now, from what I see, this is what he says. The idea goes around pantheism. Abdu'l-Baha has spoken of this. It's one of the topic in the Some Answered Questions. And has rejected the theories of the pantheists about the existence, about God and whatnot. I'm going to reconstruct what he says in my understanding of the topic to see what is this going to take us. The word is pantheism is a word that the Greek word pan means one, theo always means God, like theocracy. Pantheism means God. So it's like one God. That's what it means, pantheism. In Persians, they have the word for it is called wahdat-e-wujud, something that Arab they use that too. Wahdat means the oneness, wujud means existence. The oneness of existence. Okay. Based on this definition, they say, including this Mr. Gomshi, he could correct me if he thinks I understood him wrongly. He says essentially, existence is one. There are not too many existences. He used the word wujud. Wujud means existence. He says there's one wujud. He clearly says the tree, the cup, the water cup, the glass of water, the tree, God, everything exists. So everything essentially is one existence. And it says in the existence, there's existence and then there's existent. A glass is an existent. There is an existence in it. So that existence, which is shared by everything in the universe, which exists, if it doesn't exist, it doesn't, but if it exists, then all the things and the beings, everything in the universe, whatever we know, we don't know, share one existence. That existence is God. It appears and manifests itself into this existent, like a cup, like a garden, like a tree, as he says that. He actually says in the things that I was in Saudi Arabia, one of these teachers approaching me and asking me that he wants to write something against the wahdat-e-wujud, or this oneness of existence, a philosophy that Persian promoted very much, and ask him for his help. And he's telling him that what part of this wahdat-e-wujud that you don't like, because there's only one wujud, there's only one existence. And this existence is shared between all the beings and things in the universe. Therefore, there's one existence. There aren't two. So as a result, we're all sharing, alongside of God, all of us, one existence. Except God is that existence in the very essence that everything else is the manifestation of it. Give you an example. For example, say that in this case the essence is hydrogen and everything else is the manifestation of hydrogen. Because 4 hydrogen makes helium, many of them makes other elements, and consequently the whole world is really essentially made out of hydrogen. Hydrogen is God, everything is the combination of God. Okay. So, and he says God is one, tree is not God, he says. Tree is only the manifestation of an existence. It is a form of existence that is the consequence of the true existence, which is God. And they call that God. He goes on and says other things that I will discuss later on. In Persian, there's a word called wujud, means existence, and then there's a word mawjud, means existent. So, from what we know, and everyone knows, a glass and a tree and myself, it's all mawjud, means created. Wujud is different. God is the wujud, is not the mawjud. Because if we and God and the glass and every one of us, we share the same existence, then just like the glass that needs a creator, this God also needs a creator. The question that the glass and I asking, where is God and where am I coming from, the same question is in the head of God. God is also asking, where am I coming from? So, Now, whether I try to explain this in very briefly to you what this is, it's a plague. It's the new theology after the Iranian regime and Ayatollah and all this revolution, which was really a cultural revolution. It was a religious revolution in Iran, and everyone is responsible for it, for bringing it up, including those who did not participate in it, such as Baha'is. Indirectly, they're responsible for it. All of this they created, they tried to revive Islam, and they couldn't. They failed. Now they're switching into the old regurgitations of the past of the Sufis, which goes really to the antiquities, where even the Greek ideas, it's all pantheism goes back there. And the word itself is a Greek word. So if this is God, what is the point of going to God then? Because God is glass, is yourself. That is not what the truth is at all. No. This is the idea of Carl Sagan. I remember he was talking to Pamela Wallin right on CBC, and he told him that, do you believe in God? He says, well, God, the whole thing is one infinity. All of it combined together, all the existence, all of it together makes one huge existence. That's God. There's nothing else beside that. He was very material about it. This new Sufis in Iran, which unfortunately they're not new, they're all, as I said, regurgitations of the ideas of the past. And definitely mutations and deformations of many other ideas of the great knowledgeable people such as Hafiz, Sa'di, and especially Rumi. That these people, they are using some of those verses in context, and as a result they say this is what God is. The entire universe is one existence. And so in the Baha'i faith this is not acceptable. Actually, it's not acceptable even in Islam. It's not. There are clear evidences, a word of Imam Ali that does not accept this idea that God is everything or is manifesting itself into this. Basically, according to these people, and Abdu'l-Baha explained, God is a huge reality of existence that has broken into many different existences. The underlying very essential part of a glass, and everything is God. God is broken down into the universe. Baha'i faith does not accept that. God is completely separated from the creation, and in fact there are three distinct levels in existence. But these kind of ideas of the sophistications of the ideas of thinking and pondering over the facts when the essence is not there, it causes people misunderstand the whole idea, and then it can come even among the Baha'is. I have heard Baha'is, whether they know it or not, they're saying the same thing. Based on that, even they translate the book wrong. So I'm not here pointing at Mr. Qomshi or the Muslims. I'm saying the Baha'is are just, they're the part of this show. I was looking at the Tablet of Wisdom of Baha'u'llah. This gentleman, God bless him, is dead now. He was translating this Tablet of Wisdom based on the writing of Shawqi Effendi, and the words are correct, but the arrangement is wrong, because it seems his philosophy was one of these pantheists. And I have pointed that before in my speeches to you. It says in the Tablet of Wisdom, see, this is how the translation goes. In the Tablet of Wisdom says, nature is God's will and is its expression in and through the contingent world. The man who translated this did not understand what the meaning is. As a result, he understood, and his understanding, he rendered his understanding to English. Now, from what he says, we see that God is, the nature is actually the will of God. There you go. This is clearly against the Baha'i faith. Nature is not the will of God. Not at all. Nature is created by the will of God, but it is not the will of God. Then you're pantheist if that's what you think. And the will of God is not God. God is separated. It's something else from His will. His will causes the creation. And Baha'u'llah says there's no then connection between them. There's no direct tie and connection between them. It's very simple, in fact. I've brought this thousands of times. It's such a cliche. God says in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the Islamic traditions, many places, God has made man in His own image. Well, one of the meaning is that we are God in one way. We could see God in ourselves. I'm a person, my name is Abbas, I have a willpower, I have a word, I have a design, I have a thought, I have an idea. I write that down in a book. Based on what I've written, which is my design, which is my word, which is my will, whatever you want to call it, one can read that and make this house. Am I this house? No. Am I this book that I've written? No. I am in no way and shape am my will or am my creation. I am not my own creation and I am not my own will. I am separated distinctly from this tree. Just a matter of expression. But just like Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse, Mickey can never understand Walt Disney. It's just a paper, two-dimensional being. But even on this example, some of these, regurgitators, philosophers, they come back and say, listen, Abbas is, his will is, his creation is. All of you have these is at the end of your word in order to express your existence. We say Abbas is a man. Abbas has a will. Will is from Abbas. This house is the creation of Abbas. So I and my will, which I wrote it in a book, and this house, we do share an existence. It's true. It is. So they are going to say that based on the same thing that I said, and God and His will, His word, His design, which is Jesus Christ, which is Baha'u'llah, which is Muhammad, which they are a manifestation of His will, and then will has created everything. All of them, they share the existence because all of them have a word is at the end. Therefore, there's only one existence, one God. Outside of this existence is nothingness. God sharing the existence with everybody else. Therefore, we and God and everything is one thing. Except God is that essential purity that doesn't break down, but He's manifesting itself in the thousands of other things. Abdu'l-Baha says no. it is correct if you say everything is manifestation of God in a sense that nothing is separated from God. It's correct. But if you say they're the manifestation of God in a sense that God is dissolved in order for everything to exist, then that's wrong. So we have to study this word is. I'm going to tell you that right now, right off the bat. Anything in this universe, contingent, metaphysics, physics, anything that a man can bring now within a billions and trillion years from now and in future, if the word is can be applied to it, that is not God. God is not then. Whatever we say is, God is not. This is it. This is what Imam Ali says. Kamal al-Tawheed, Nafyu Sifat anhu. The perfection of the oneness of God is to deprive and bereft him from all the attributes. Don't say God is kind. Abdu'l-Baha clearly says in the Some Answered Question, we don't mean when we say God is generous, God is creator, God is this and that, as if that we know God really is creator, or God is kind, or we know his kindness. None of it is relevant to the truth and the reality of God. These are all reference to the manifestation of God. Baha'u'llah is kind. Baha'u'llah is the creator. Baha'u'llah is generous. Not God. The word, if you want to go to the very bottom, the truth of this, God is not. Literally, if we go outside of this universe and we look, there's nothing else except a huge globe right down there with trillions and countless amounts of these galaxies. On the other side, there's just an absolute darkness. Literally, there is nothing there. Right there. That's the realm of God. Nothingness. I'm going to read the word of Baha'u'llah about this. So the Baha'is, they know that. And don't fall into this. And I'm going to continue this stuff that I've been talking about it before. This is what Baha'u'llah says. In the first part, the first paragraph of the second part of the Book of Certitude. To every discerning and illumined heart, it is evident that God, the unknowable essence, the divine being, is immensely exalted beyond every human attribute, such as corporeal existence, ascent and descent, egress and regress. Far be it from his glory that the human tongue should adequately recount his praise, or that human heart comprehend his fathomless mystery. He is and had ever been veiled in the ancient eternity of his essence, and will remain in his reality everlastingly hidden from the sight of men. No vision taketh in him, but he taketh in all vision. A quotation he brings from Quran. Continues. He is the subtle, the all-perceiving. This is the quote from Quran. Then Baha'u'llah continues. No tie of direct intercourse can possibly bind him to his creature. Please listen to this and don't fall into this ditch. No tie of direct intercourse can possibly bind him to his creatures. He standeth exalted beyond and above all separation and union, all proximities and remoteness. No sign can indicate his presence or his absence. Beautiful. Continue quotation. Inasmuch as by a word of his command, inasmuch as by a word of his command, all that are in heaven and on earth have come to exist. And by his wish, which is the primal will itself, all have stepped out of utter nothingness into the realm of being, the world of visible. So there's a God, and then there is a will. That will has created all of these things, but there is no direct connection between his will and himself, and between the will and what has been created. The word is does not apply. I tell you where is the word is extant in the Baha'i mysticism, the topic that I'm going to be explaining a few words. Is applies where there's time and motion. That is material. Any other is that we bring is our ideas. Really, the word is doesn't exist. As our ideas. They are not thing. They're no thing. So, you can say something is or is not. It's two ways to go. Is this world of existence. Is not is beyond it. That would be the word of the realm of the will of God. The notings. But we got two now. We got is and we got is not. There are two possibilities. God in the Baha'i faith is beyond both of these possibilities. The word is and is not even applicable to him. That is what it means. No sign can indicate his presence or his absence. That's what Baha'u'llah means. This is how I picture it. Let's talk picture now. I imagine there is a light. I write down on it letter X. Let's say it's white for the sake of argument. From this unknown X, two rays of light coming down. One is blue, one is yellow. They cross each other, but not on the top. They cross each other. And when the yellow and blue cross each other, the junction becomes green. The green is this world of existence. The blue and yellow are the word of the will, which is the nothingness, really. Because everything that word is applied to it is in the green. Outside of green, we mean is not. Now we say everything is green, the word of is. Now we're going to imagine the green is not. Then if the green is not, then there has to be blue and yellow. That makes up the green. That would be the realm of the will of God, is and is not. However, both of these two is not God. God is beyond being and nothing. Therefore, when you talk about wujud, mawjud, and anything that you say, you're all talking within this green realm. The God that you think, it's your own creations. It's the word that you have created. It's not an indication of the truth and the reality of him. It's all assumption. I call God, I can't use the word is. I say the inevitable mathematical assumption. This is where Karl Marx comes. He says, for something to be, he gives you a statement. He says it has to occupy an empty space. Like the planet Earth wants to exist, it has to occupy an empty space. There has to be an empty space for the Earth to be in, for anything. It has to be in time, it has to be in motion. Then he says, is your God moving? No. Is good you God in time? No. Is he occupying literally some place? We say no. He says, well, that is the definition of nothing. You're trying to tell us nothing exists. God is nothing. We Baha'i mean the same thing. We say God is nothing. Nothing of whatever that or thing. He is not that. We can't use the word is then, because we're outside of the realm of is and verb. So I discovered that these three definitions are not exactly correct. There's something else with the creation that it's been ill-defined, and he never defined it, Marx and Hegel. I brought a fourth statement, a fourth coordinate to the universe, and that is the existence, the matter is always composed. Because if you want time, you have to have two things. If you want motion, you have to have two things. Then matter must be always at least two things. That we say that these two must have been one, therefore it became two, then for a motion took place. And the length of this motion is time. Therefore time exists when there are two. But there is one, which we must accept there is one, all of a sudden, by this definition, then there can't be time and motion. Because if you need time and movement, you have to have two. But if there's one thing, time and motion halts, doesn't exist. So this universe cannot then be what it is right now. Something else must have been. But that's all it is in the beginning of the universe, only one thing. We'll have to accept that there has been one thing. If there's two, we don't need God, we don't need Creator. Why? Because two is the motion and time. This interact with each other and create the universe. But if there's one, that one cannot do anything. Therefore, we must accept, if that is the thing, there has to be a no thing parallel to it. Completely outside of it, independent from it, must be assumed in order to introduce time and motion. So, the material world, if it is made out of two things, there's no God required. Because time and motion exist when there's two. But if there's one, then there's no time and motion. Then you have to assume time and motion. You have to explain it. Where is it coming from? But you can't say universe is started of two. Universe is started one point materially. And if you need two, you have to assume something non-materially, non-physically, metaphysically. This is thing, the other side is no thing. That no thing and thing combined, crossed, and all of a sudden you have time and motion. Creation began. So that beginning, the yellow, the no thing with his blue, they crossed each other and they created green, which is the world of existence. But the matter will not be resolved, because now there is one beginning for the material world, which is not responsible. We cannot be responsible for all the motion. Therefore, we assume outside of it something independent from it to create a pair, out of which we can explain time and motion. But now we have a universe that is still made out of two. One thing and one no thing. The intellectual man wants to know where this thing and no thing came from. Must have come from somewhere else. That purity, that is God. So God is outside of thing and nothing. So when you say the word of existence, you're referring everything within these combinations of the blue and yellow, which is green. Outside of this green, there is nothing else. There's no way you can find blue and yellow in the green. In green, blue and yellow is not existing. Cannot be existing, is not. And that is the word of nothing. Nothing. So, God is well beyond the word is and why. This is why we can't say, where did this God come from? The word come and from and is and why and what and when and where and whom and who, it's all in this green combination. Outside of this is nothing. That is God, outside of this existence. So we cannot combine, therefore, as Mr. Elahi likes to, and people like him and others, whoever, whatever religion it is, that all the word of existence into one thing that does not exist. And this is the reason I found, again, the miracle of Baha'u'llah. He says that if you don't accept me, you don't take my prescriptions, that is the recognition of me, you are going astray. How many times this has been proven to me? How many times? And I'm so glad that earth has been visited with this power. Then we are blessed. So, there's much more to say, but believe me, if I'm going to go more of these things, we are just like a dog, chasing over its own tail. That what I said, it's enough. You have to contemplate on that. There have been people that they brought some other questions, is like why Baha'u'llah says that, and how sure you could be about not accepting Baha'u'llah, then you can't get anywhere else. I said the answer is that so simple that if I say that it's prescribed for everyone who wants to learn mathematics, he has to know the digits are from 0 and then 1 to 9. Everything is combination. Whoever doesn't accept 0 to 9 cannot be a mathematician. Is that fair? Can there be a mathematician who does not accept the digits 1 to 9? No. It's that vivid, that obvious. Baha'u'llah is that basics of life, the basic of existence. You don't accept him, you don't recognize him, then you are not a person. You have no brain. Then you are blind. If you can't see the sun in the middle of the heaven, you are blind. If you can't hear this word of truth, you are deaf. And if you can't see this is the intelligent, you are brainless. This is no insult to you. This is the minimum of existence. If you want to be a human being, you have to have 5 senses and be able to think and have a willpower. You have none of that, you're a vegetable. Baha'u'llah is that basic. Disagreeing with him, then you have to disagree with the equality of man and women. Then you have to disagree with all his teachings. How are you going to learn physics if you say all the physicists, Einstein's, name it, I don't accept them. I don't accept Einstein's. I don't call Max Planck. Werner Heisenberg, no. Go before. Kepler, no. I don't accept none of these physicists, and I want to learn physics. Go. You can go, I guess, start from beginning, from Adam, from cave. But if you want to get anywhere else, this is the highway. This is the way it goes. And this is the example of a gentleman, such a nice guy, who's gone all his life. He has learned and memorized thousands of verses from thousands of people, and when you put it together, it's the house of card. It's nothing. One puff, it blows away. None of it are real. A cook that has all the ingredient but doesn't know the art of cooking. The right philosophy is very, very essential. If we do not know the very basic fact that's seemingly irrelevant to us, it actually manifests in all our life. Imagine the fact that we understood sun is the center of the solar system. Before we didn't know that. We thought sun is a planet, goes around the earth. Earth is the center. The world was in 14th century. As soon as we understood this, all of a sudden, you have Kepler, you have Galileo, you have Isaac Newton. The world changes. One truth that we understood. Baha'u'llah and the Baha'i faith is that truth. If we dismiss it, we've dismissed a very fundamental, basic of all understanding. And in a practical matter, those who go without him, such as Mr. Qamshai, with all knowledge, even a good individual, good person, you can get a good aura from him, still wandering in the bewilderment. They don't know what they're doing. I will be talking about just principles of the Baha'i mysticism in a couple of videos for you next few days. God bless you.